G'day, footy nerds. We are back chatting about the draft, chatting about the Under-18s Championship Carnival currently going on. There were two big games over the weekend that I live streamed with Dylan Alexander over on his channel live. So if you want my raw reactions and his raw reactions to what was going on in those games, go check out those live streams. We streamed both the Vic Country and Western Australia game on Saturday afternoon and then the South Australia Allies game on Sunday. And we are today going to talk about those games and the individuals involved and what it means in the draft race. So let's get into it. The first game of the weekend, it was Vic Metro kicking off their champs campaign over in Perth, going up against WA, who surprised many with their upset win over the reigning champion South Australia last week. This was an intriguing game. You had the possible favourites coming in Vic Metro playing their first match away from home, going up against a bit of a dark horse team in WA. It was a tight contest for the most part early. The wind assisted one side of the field, so the Vics are up and about, kicking the only 3 goals of the opening term. WA then kicked the only 4 goals of the second term. Metro utilised the scoring end, but to no great avail in the third. But it was that fourth quarter where they really came out in a big way. You thought with a 2-goal deficit, WA could use that side of the ground, the scoring side, to their advantage, but they did not. It was Vic Metro who put their foot on the throat, kicking out to a comfortable 36-point win, their first win in their first game of the campaign. Aside from a dominant second quarter from the Black Swans, this game really was owned by Vic Metro in a big way. So they start their campaign with a big win and now focus on the Allies this Sunday in Ballarat. That should be a fun game of footy for Vic Metro. Meanwhile, WA are still searching for that elusive second tournament win that they haven't had for quite some time. They've been stuck on one tournament win for the last few years. They've got a bye this weekend, but let's talk about the individuals. We'll start with the big name from out west in these first couple of weeks, Leo Steed, the Stallion. He was best on ground in their win over SA last week. Leo Steed for WA. He shot up draft boards with that performance. His first half in this game was sensational. His ability to find space in traffic and handle contested situations and create space from those situations was really, it was elite. It shows so many AFL level qualities, and his work rate to remain involved, not just defensively, which he has done in the Waffle Seniors, but offensively, and be a presence offensively was huge. He won so much of the footy early days. By the way, and I did say not just defensively, but his tenacity with that defensive pressure was again a big constant in this game, as it has been, throughout his whole, every time I've watched him play, pretty much. 8 tackles to go along with his 24 disposals, Leo Steed. I really like this guy. I think often you can look at smaller frames, smaller midfielders, 177 centimetres, and wonder whether their work on ground level will translate against bigger bodies in the AFL. That's probably the question you often have with these sub 180 centimetre type players. But Leo Steed, I think, obviously he's vertically limited to what he can do, on the football field, but you can clearly see how his game can translate through to the AFL. He's displaying really good traits as that modern high half forward that can get up the ground with that good work rate, remain defensively involved with his pressure, use the footy at a high class as well, but also find space out of contested situations. That is really good attributes for one of those smaller forward half players that you see, these Hawthorns and these Geelongs build in their team. All he really needs to do now in a big way is add a bit more class and damage to his game, and then you've got someone who could genuinely rise into top 20 calculations, if not top 10, as some have him at the moment. I don't quite have him there yet. I probably want to see a little bit more rounded to his game, but he's got great AFL traits, Leo Steed. He played really well on the weekend. Someone else I spoke about last week who impressed is George Gale. He ended this game with 28 disposals and 5 tackles playing on the wing. Actually played a bit more through the midfield in this game too, which is perfect, because that's probably the one thing I wanted to see from him to enhance his value even more as a draftee. Often you'll find these wingmen who can eventually turn into midfielders in the AFL, but they maybe slide down boards a little bit because it's a more auxiliary role away from where the ball is in the contest in the midfield. But seeing George Gale play midfield minutes, even limited midfield minutes in this game, is still a massive bonus, and I think going forward we might see a little bit more. But at 190 centimetres, this guy does really well to cover space around the ground. It's why he's playing on the wing, mostly because of his work rate and running ability. Maybe not the quickest wingman going around, maybe not the most athletic, but he's someone who, with ball in hand, you can trust in a big way, and he does cover space really well. Mostly offensively, I would say. He covers space offensively, gets to uncontested possessions and situations, but that ability to be that workhorse in transition is really valuable in the modern game. So that is great. He's showing really good signs as that modern day wingman, which is always pleasing to me because, as you guys might know, I do love a good wingman just as much as I do love a good key defender. But yeah, I think maybe the first half he was a bit more noticeable, and maybe in that winning side a bit more noticeable last week as well when things are going right for WA. So I'm going to be interested to see what it looks like when they play tougher teams like Vic Country, for example, WA, and whether or not he can get the most out of his performance there, but still quite clearly one of the best in his team's loss. And for me, he's definitely on the verge of that first round in the draft. It's just about building more midfield minutes so we can see a bit more of his contested ball winning ability, because that's something we don't quite have as much yet as with other players. My personal favourite from WA in this game, though, was Heath Mellody. He's honestly just probably my favourite from WA in the draft overall. I really like this guy, and I had him just on the verge of my top 10 heading into this Championship Carnival, but a bit quieter last week, but really lit it up out of the back half in this game against Vic Metro, displaying his lovely foot skills. He's one of the best kicks in the draft, moving the ball forward at will, collecting 29 disposals, some easier than others, some kick-ins, but 10 rebound 50s, so many clean-up moments where he relieved his team under pressure, either bombing the ball, 60 or 70 odd meters, or hitting up targets short. He was just lovely to watch all game, Heath Mellody. He is so mature with his decision-making and so clean with ball in hand. I've said a lot last year too, like genuine ball users are becoming harder and harder to find, and Mellody is one of, if not the best kicks in this draft, and building confidence too. So I was really pleased with his performance from Heath Mellody. I thought he showed plenty and inflated stats, yes, 29 disposals, quite a few kick-ins, quite a few uncontested situations, but still the way he uses that footy is something you just need in the modern game. A couple others I want to highlight, both in the ruck, starting with Benji Van Rooyen. Not the most damaging game, probably didn't have a big impact on the game from his own ability, I guess. And to be honest, I still don't really know where I see this guy in the draft landscape, but he was going up against big Harry Van Hattum, who was the genuine pick one contender in this draft. And I thought he got the chocolates in this matchup, Benji Van Rooyen. I thought he had some really good marking moments in contests. Generally, he was strong at stoppages, winning 17 hitouts and 4 clearances. I don't think it's fair to base credentials on 1v1 like matchups or anything like that, because I remember last year Sam Ainsworth, who went undrafted, actually did a really good job on Cooper Duff-Tytler, who went pick 3 or 4 in the draft. But still, great signs from Benji Van Rooyen. I thought he did really well on a really tough opponent. And even better signs from Axel Walsh. This guy is a bottom major for next year's draft, for 2027. And Tassie would already have him on their whiteboard. This guy is a super talent. Didn't put together a complete game, just the 10 disposals, 10 hitouts, and a goal. But there were some moments and patches in this match that just wow you. Like, I often look at the performances that aren't vote-worthy from draft prospects, and I think you can find more out of them. And there might be other players in this video that I'll talk about in that regard. But, when a player isn't quite in their groove, not getting the 3 Brownlow votes, but still impacting and having those jaw-dropping acts of play that just show AFL-level quality, that was Axel Walsh in this game. He was showing off his athleticism, his jumping, he was getting to ground level, kicking goals in open play. This guy is going very early next year, I would suggest, just based off what we're seeing in this carnival so far. I think he's priority number 1 for Tasmania. We know how important rucks are in the modern game, and Axel Walsh was fantastic. We showed fantastic signs in this match. Some others who probably deserve a mention: Tom Brown down back was really, really solid. He's looking like an emerging key defender in this draft. He's probably another one who it's hard to get a gauge on because we don't quite know what he's like with ball in hand as much. He doesn't win the footy as much as other key defenders in this draft, but his defending or defensive ability from what I've seen in these first 2 weeks is really strong. He clearly knows how to defend. He was a brick wall for WA. I thought the small forwards were held well offensively as opposed to last week when they got off the leash a bit early against SA, but I love the pressure from Finlay Yeo, who is linked to the Dockers, and Lockie McGlade, who is in the Eagles Academy. He kicked 2 goals. Finlay Yeo piled on 6 tackles for the game. Harper Banfield, another one tied to the Eagles, cracked in on on ground level with 20 touches. Lucas Robinson, the Fremantle NJ, probably struggled a bit more against bigger bodies. Harvey Sport and Guy, only 10 disposals as a key forward, but some really promising moments, putting himself in goal-scoring opportunities and providing himself the option to score goals. Maybe a bit wasteful at times, but still it's not a full game. It is signs, and I thought he showed quite a few signs in this game. Harvey Sport and Guy, he was someone who we came into the draft knowing about, in the early stages of this season. I watched a really good contest between him and Benji Van Rooyen to start the season in the Waffle Colts. But yeah, I thought, although WA were, quiet and less impressive than other weeks, there were still quite a few good performances to note. Let's go to Vic Metro. We'll start by talking about not the big performances of the day, but the pick one battle, because there are two players for Vic Metro who look right at the top of the pointy end of that pick one debate. And we'll start with Harry Van Hattum, who is probably, as it stands right now, the leading contender to go at pick one in the open pool in this draft. He is a big, towering ruckman from the Northern Knights. He was quieter in this game. We'll start by saying he has been suffering, he's suffered an injury that he's only just returned from last weekend, I believe, or recently, Harry Van Hattum. So, every excuse to be a bit quieter in this game. He had the 11 disposals, 15 hitouts. His ruckcraft in general was pretty good. He's a bigger body and a towering figure, so, he won some promising hitouts here and there, but he was not really as powerful in open play as he usually is, and that's what you get with Harry Van Hattum at his best, is someone who can really impose himself in open play. Wasn't able to do that. I think this is probably just a brush off the cobwebs kind of game. I see people being pretty reactive to this performance and throwing the the pick one tag out the window because of it, but everyone's going to have bad games here and there. Really the question is this going to be a constant feature, or is this going to be a one-off? And if he can provide us with a highlight game, a game where he shows his worth as that pick one contender, then there's no stress at all. Bad games for big men especially are fine, but if this is what we see for the rest of this Championship Carnival, then we can start to think about whether there are other options at pick one, maybe like Arki Butler. I thought he showed exactly why he deserves to be in this conversation. He was really great in this game, or not even a best on ground performance. Like I was saying before with Axel Walsh, there were some genuine AFL moments in this game, but it wasn't a game that was full quarter. He was pretty much only playing forward of the ball. He's a forward midfielder, but correct me if I'm wrong, I think he was mainly in the forward line in this game, playing that genuine Toby Green role that's given him those comparisons. He had the 14 touches, 2 goals, 2 behinds. I really love this guy because, just as you start to think, where is Butler? He's been a bit quiet. He bobs up and provides a highlight, snapping over his head, sending the ball inside 50 with perfection, tackling in the arc. He just looks like a genuine top 10 talent. And that's how you know. When you got a player not underperforming, but, not amongst the best on ground, as I said earlier, but still having a huge impact in moments and showing why clubs should still thinking about drafting him early. That is great. Sometimes you obviously you want these 30 touch 3 goal games every now and then, but sometimes you can find out more about a draft prospect based on a sub 15 disposal game. And I think that's the case with Arki Butler. He was not involved in a big way, but still showed plenty in this game. That's when you've got a special talent on your hands, someone who catches your eyes when they're not best on ground. And I thought, although he wasn't amongst the best on the ground, he looked the most AFL quality in this game of anyone on the field. That's what I will say about Arki Butler. I really liked Albert MacGowan in this match. He's a Sandringham Dragons midfielder, playing on the wing for Metro, genuine wing capabilities. He was running everywhere. I would love to know GPS numbers for games like this. Obviously, we don't have access to them as footy nerds, but I would love to know, because I think he would have to be right on top. He was absolutely everywhere. His work rate in this game was exceptional. His ability to be an outlet option for rebound 50 kicks is first class. He just knows where to be, and Vic Metro moved the footy really well in this game from defence to forward half, and a big reason for it was Albert MacGowan. A lot of the plays came through this guy. His kicking isn't even laser dart level or anything. He doesn't tear up the field. It's that work rate to position himself in areas where he can get those uncontested marks, where a marker needs to be, and then just take the right option going forward, not biting off more than he can chew. It was a very smart wingman game, which, as you know, I like. I like a good wingman. Billy Wigmore. This guy was my best on ground for Vic Metro in the game, and this is a surprise. This guy was not even in my mind before this Championship Carnival came up, but he put together one of those performances that does really just stick with you in a big way. He started the year, by the way, as a medium forward, kicked 4 goals in the Western Jets round 1 game, but he is now an intercepting defender. Awkward size maybe at sub 190 centimeters, so that is something to probably note, is that I don't really know what position he is or what role he is, but in this game he was often positioned on the WA small forwards, benefiting maybe a bit from poor entries to intercept the ball in the air, mark it against smaller opponents, but more impressively, I thought he did keep up on ground level with the WA Quicks as well, and he mopped up on ground level. He had 13 intercept possessions, the most of any Champs game so far this year, 3 contested marks, and he was a huge reason why Vic Metro were able to withstand WA entering inside 50. I thought this guy was genuinely great, and if I'm giving votes for each team, this guy's getting my 3 votes for Vic Metro, and he's definitely someone to keep an eye on for the rest of the carnival. Finally, to keep an eye on, keeping the theme of the bottom ages going, let's talk about Jake Miller, probably another one that Tassie have highlighted on their whiteboard. That 2027 draft is just absolutely stacked, and the fact that you've got, you know, key forwards in it now, and by the way, not just the Tassie draft that's stacked, but that Vic Metro key forward line is ridiculous. You've got Sam Gafer, Lewis Hounston, Harrison Leader, you've got Jake Miller as well for the 2027 draft. I personally thought of those guys, by the way, Jake Miller was the best key forward on the ground. I don't think he didn't even register a score, a goal, or a behind, but he was just so prolific in the air. 9 marks, 3 contested, pushing up the field, leading up the field, and demonstrating real, I guess, or his ability to open up defensive zoning was really important for Vic Metro as he linked up the field, and his want to kick through the corridor as well. He'll mark the footy and immediately look through the middle of the ground to try and open the field up. So it's not even his ability to mark the footy and open up zoning, you know, through those contested marks, but his ball used to go through the middle of the ground as well. So it's a bit of a double whammy with Jake Miller. Jake Miller. It shows how aggressive he is to attack. I loved his game. I think he's going to be a great prospect in the 2027 draft. A bit more love to give out for Vic Metro because they had quite a few big performances. Archie Spencer, I wish I could talk about him more. I try and keep it to 5 players that I really discuss at length in these videos, but Archie Spencer, I've mainly seen him as a midfielder inside the contest, so to see him rebounding off halfback with genuine speed was exciting, especially in the 3rd and 4th quarter. I thought he really came into the game. I thought Kai Parker was also good, 24 disposals, 19 kicks, inflated stats a little bit, but still performed strongly in the backline alongside Jet Flower. Tyson Bradley was great. He's a big key defender, had 10 intercept possessions and showed off his sticky hands in the air. Jordan Knapp and Toby Krasner were busy. Harrison Chapman on the outside as that kind of outside midfielder worked into the game. Lachlan Hicks and Tippett were able to find the footy and hit the scoreboard. Gus Teixeira too, although the top 10 candidate was maybe a little bit quieter than we expected going into the game, so he's one that would want a really big bounce back game to really cement himself in that top 10. I thought Harvey Cook and George Dimer on ground level looked really good. George Dimer, we've heard a lot about his ground level work, and I thought he was good. Lockie Burrows showed some real moments of class as well. Again, one of those moments games where it's not a 4th quarter performance, but he just gets in and out of traffic and weaves around, and you think that is an AFL player maybe waiting to happen. Harrison Leader, Gafer, and Hounston combined for 4 goals. That is a fearsome key forward unit. I could really talk about Vic Metro a lot more than I just did. They were really impressive. There is a lot to like about this team. They are genuine contenders this Championship Carnival. Game 2, it was South Australia going up against the Allies, hosting the Allies at Alberton Oval. This was a good one because it was, you know, you had 2 disappointing teams from round 1, both losing their games of footy, maybe one more disappointing than the other in SA, but they were both looking to bounce back in this game, and early on it was a contest. It was a tight contest with minimal scoring. The Allies, it was the slow first quarter was probably the only thing that kept them in the game early, because after quarter time, the Allies kicked 5 goals. SA piled on 16 and missed a further 9 chances to go along with that. It was a genuine bloodbath after quarter time. SA ran out 66-point winners. The SA midfield regained its strength, regained its mojo in a big way after being heavily beaten against the Allies. They were finding territory with ease in this game. They shut out the big names of the Allies as well, which was really impressive, while the leaders at SA really grew themselves more in value, and I'll talk about them in a second. But it was a really rounded performance from SA. Everyone chipped in. whereas for the Allies, it was really disappointing. In fact, let's actually start by talking about the Allies, because there's not as many names to get through. Starting with the star of last weekend, Ethan Matthews. He posted video game numbers against Vic Country. He was absolutely phenomenal. Everyone was talking about a potential top 10, top 5 candidate in this draft. This time around, he was completely out of the game. He had the 14 disposals, 0 clearances. It looked like Jack Nelson was spending a bit of time on him at centre bounces. He just couldn't get in the game. Ethan Matthews at all. Couldn't use his kicking ability. Had minimal amounts of kicks in this game as well. So, look, I was hesitant to throw him in my top 5 last week, just based on the one game, because that's unfortunately most of what I'd seen from Matthews at that high level. And I think it's good that we see a down performance after such a big game, because that can often tell you a lot about a player's draftability, you know, whether or not they can back up those big performances, but also just seeing him kept out of the game, you know, without a plan B to involve himself is something that clubs would notice. I want to see another game with adversity coming his way to see what he does with it, because the GWS prospect was incredible last week, very quiet this week. It clearly played into SA's hands, but while Matthews was quiet, Brisbane Academy prospect Caylen Murray, this is the player of the round right here. This guy was crazy. He was absolutely phenomenal. And it's funny, right? Because I remember looking back, like I've only ever seen him as a player looking back as this calm kind of general figure in the back half. Maybe I watched the wrong games leading into champs, but the last fortnight, he's completely changed in my eyes. Like, he is this pacey, rebounding defender, uses the ball well, super aggressive, running so much with ball in hand. He had 31 disposals, 7 rebounds, so much. I mean, all of the Allies' excitement in this game, which to be fair was rare, but it came through Murray. Like, the way he found the footy and just went forward at all costs, tried to will his team back in the game, and then late in the piece, he's moved into the forward line and becomes their most prolific goal scorer, kicking there. He was the only Allies player to get multiple goals. He kicked 2 for the game. So it's crazy. He was their best player behind the ball by a country mile. They swing him forward in 1 quarter, and he's already their best forward of the ball as well. He just went to a complete other level that I didn't know. I hadn't seen any signs of this level before. It was really impressive. Genuine riser game here, bolter game here. I'm thinking top 30, if not top 20, based on what we saw. It was a massive performance from Murray, another club-linked player coming into the mix. Archie Devine is probably the last to note here, Tassie prospect. He was also winning the ball in the defensive half, linking with Murray a little bit at times. He had the 25 disposals, 9 marks, some good moments by foot. Murray was probably the aggressive user. Devine was more precision-based and just got the job done. He is the most noteworthy Tassie prospect outside of Hugh McCullum, who is injured at the moment. But yeah, I think honestly, like, that might be it for the Allies. You did also have Archie Watts and Cooper Hodge, who had moments, but it was just such a down day. It was really hard to find any players of note to discuss. The main discussion is really centered around Caylen Murray and just how high he can go in this draft, because he is absolutely bolting up. It was great last week. He was fantastic this week. All right, SA, where do we even start? Kodah Edwards is a good place to start, their captain. I thought he was a bit quieter last week. We know just how prolific he can be as that game-breaking captain in the midfield, in the forward line. Clearly, he wanted to respond in this game. You could just feel it, feel the energy. He went to another level. Like, he really rose to the occasion, arguably best on ground. 27 touches, 6 clearances, 6 tackles, and a goal. His contest work was that of someone wanting to prove a point. You could tell that this guy was playing up a gear than he had been in the last week or so. It was a game that demonstrated to me leadership more than anything else. It was a captain's performance, if you will. He's someone who's probably been sliding down my board a little bit recently, with others rising, I guess. But there was real power and tenacity in this game from Kodah Edwards. I was very impressed. This was a really great performance. Jack Slattery, this guy, we got to talk about this guy. Like, I knew he was going to be a big part of SA's scoring coming into the carnival. I'd seen a little bit of him as he's an overager, by the way. He's 19, or turning 19 years old this draft. So someone who missed out on the draft last year, probably not as much discussion around him for that reason. I don't know quite why that is. I think, like, as an overager, you're still a player eligible for the draft, still very young. I think clubs are going to like what they see from Jack Slattery. He was enormous inside 50. He finished the game with 6 goals, the most of any player in the carnival this year so far. His aerial work was really strong, not just marking the footy, but competing. He is a smaller key forward. He's 192 centimeters, but it does give him scope as a ball winner. He found himself taking leaping marks, juggling marks in the air, big pack marks, kicking ground ball goals. If you go back and watch his highlights, you will see that he does find himself on the end of good plays, which can suggest maybe a forward who knows how to lead, but benefits mainly from a good system. I don't think that's the case. I think he's a very good defensive forward too. Like, this guy is competitive, he is mobile, and there's no reason why clubs shouldn't be thinking about him in this national draft, even if he is turning 19 this year. Like, I wouldn't say first round calculations or anything like that just yet. A 6-goal game doesn't make you a great draft prospect just like that. This was probably more the case of a big game rather than a big player in the draft landscape, but it does show you there are more layers than we initially perceived with Jack Slattery in his game. He's making the absence of Dougie Cochran in that forward line a bit of a non-issue in this game in particular, where the SA just completely destroyed the Allies. 6 goals in a massive win. Awesome to watch. Jacob McNicol. This is someone I am really unsure of in this draft so far. He is a smaller midfielder, posts ridiculous numbers for Glenelgan under-18s footy. Who was I talking about earlier? I was talking about Leo Steed and his ability to transition in the AFL to clearly be that high half-forward player. I'm probably less certain of Jacob McNicol in that regard. I think he is probably more so what we see here as that smaller midfielder. 26 disposals, 5 clearances, 5 inside 50s. There were some really nice moments in close and personal, often releasing quick hand passes to running players to open up space a little bit out of stoppages. I also thought his transition work was really strong too, probably as strong as I've seen it in a long time, not just in the forward half, because that's usually the go-to, but I thought he was getting from contest to contest and lending hands in defensive stoppages. Plenty will wonder where he lies in this draft. I've seen some online say he's a top 10 player in this draft. Again, I just think sub 180 centimeter midfielders don't go high in drafts unless they are the genuine cream of the crop. And I don't think there's a plan B option or a secondary position for Jacob McNicol once he joins the AFL. I think he's pretty much set as that smaller ball-winning midfielder, and that's kind of going out of vogue in a big way in the AFL. You often see these players really dominate at this younger level in the under-18s, but sometimes go undrafted even though they post ridiculous numbers. Now, I don't know if he'll go undrafted. I don't think it's that. I actually don't know, to be honest. It's really hard to say, but it is someone that I'm struggling to get a gauge on, Jacob McNicol, just where he will go in this draft. Kale Matthews-Hampton, for a different reason, is someone I struggle to get a gauge on. I really rate this guy. I think he's got genuine AFL attributes across the board, multiple genuine AFL attributes, but we haven't quite seen them all together at the same time in one game, and that's what we're probably missing from his draft. I guess his draft profile a bit at this point in time is just that performance where we see what he can do all at once. Because right now we've seen, in this game in particular, like I thought he was using his legs a lot more to drive the footy out of the back half. We didn't quite see his aerial work, but we did see him collecting the ball on ground level off halfback and distributing it on that trusty left foot. Probably a bit wayward to start with his kicking, but he found his way into the game in a big way. There felt like there was more direction in his game than in previous weeks with ball in hand. But I just think we're slowly getting glimpses of that more rounded footy nature. Like, as I said, there are still levels for him to go to. We didn't see his aerial work, which is often a feature of his game. His forward half game wasn't on display either, so there is definitely more to see from Kale Matthews-Hampton. I just want to see that four-quarter game showing everything that he has to offer, because I genuinely think this guy has top 20, maybe even top 10 attributes as a player if he puts it all together. I'm a huge fan. But a big name and a big boy who was up and about, Source Herbert, Ethan Herbert. He played forward last week. We were confused why. We saw him in the ruck a lot more this week, and to good effect. He was awesome. He was a genuine game breaker in this game. He finished the match with 11 hitouts in the ruck, only the 11, but 22 disposals, 7 clearances. His body work to win the footy in stoppages, rip it out, and progress it forward out of the clenches to give to his teammates in space, giving it to McNicol and Edwards, but also Memphis Webb, Florence. It was a huge and constant feature in this game. Not just that though, I thought his follow-up work on ground level was really good. Like to win 22 disposals at that height shows not only great work rate around the ground, but great athleticism to get on hands and knees. He's very good on ground level below his knees, follow the ball to the floor, and he was also just competitive against smaller bodies in situations that benefit his opponents. So this was really great. This is what we wanted to see last week from Ethan Herbert, that game in the ruck that proves that he is that genuine top 20, top 10 prospect that many believe him to be. now, it might sound weird me saying this, now we do need to see him more as a forward as well to enhance his value even more, to catch up a bit to Harry Van Hattum. I think if Ethan Herbert can start to show, layers as a key forward and ruck, that'd go a long way to moving him right up draft boards. Right now, it's a bit harder to know. Some more out of SA. I could have named about 30 different players, and there were only 23 on the park. But Anthony Long continued his goal-scoring form. He had 3 goals, 4 behinds. That is now, that is 7. That is 13 scoring shots in his first 2 games. Anthony Long showing that he is finding the ball inside 50. I also liked his ability to move up the ground in this game and use that tank a little bit more. That was good. Charlie Bradford kicked 4 goals. He was the main marking target in the forward line. This was a very clinical game. He didn't miss a shot, led really well, made the most of the opportunities given to him, benefited from great play up the field. Gabe Patterson wasn't able to have a big day on the scoreboard, but I like the way that he worked the footy inside 50 and hit up with vigor as he always does. It was a pretty decent game from Patterson. Memphis Webb in the guts was again strong. Great contest work, linked really nicely with Herbert and the other mids. 27 touches and 6 tackles. Sam Tassone and Jake Imey backed up strong games last week. Tassone this week I thought was the more noticeable of the two. He was great. Croker and Lees on the wing were linking well. Richmond father-son Jack Lees, definitely want to watch for Tigers fans. I like him a lot. I've spoken about him on the channel before, but all in all, great team performance from SA. I probably could have named a few more. There was lots and lots to like out of this game. But that is all, guys. Now, I'm sure many of you are wondering, why aren't I going through every single player and talking about all individuals? I will be doing that after the carnival. I will have 5 separate videos going in depth into each player for each state and talking about how they went and what it means for their draft value. So stay tuned for that because I'm really excited for those videos. But that is all. I guess this weekend we've got the one game, Vic Metro and Allies, so less to discuss, but still very keen for that. Thank you for watching, Footy Nerds. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and go footy.